A very good Sunday Fun Day morning to you. 9:19 now the time as you enjoy the midway mark of your Labor Day weekend, wherever you may be in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area, along the Central Coast, which officially is from Santa Cruz through Ventura County, or whether you're joining us in lovely Los Angeles. Lots of stuff to do all Labor Day weekend long. Wine tasting among them as we have kicked off Wine Month. Patty Pyburn, we kicked it off, yesterday?
That was the start.
Yeah, lots of so many different events to check out throughout the state. Be sure to do that as we head through September. And then at the very end, we have Savor the Central Coast with really 4 days of
amazing.
They do such a great job putting that event together. And I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor, because they are. but I was a big fan of it.
What a great event. And really, it's just grown every year, and it's wonderful, fabulous.
It really is. Okay, so our compass word this hour is dry, D-R-Y. And I have to tell you that about 2 years ago, I was at the Saturday afternoon market in Morro Bay, farmer's market downtown. And you know how the different vendors will give you samples of things as you walk past if you want to try it? And so they had some watermelon there. And I'm a huge watermelon fan. So when it's watermelon season and there's a free sample, I'm there. And so I took a taste of this and I thought, this could be one of the best tasting watermelons I've ever had. And
really intense flavor.
Super intense flavor. And I looked at the sign and it said, dry farmed. And I thought, how do you dry farm a watermelon?
Right.
You know,
how does that happen?
How does that work? Exactly. So I've become over the last couple of years a little bit obsessed with this dry farming. And I thought, well, since our compass word is dry, no better time for me to learn more about it than right now. And joining us on the line is Philip Hart with Ambeth Estate. Typically, we don't have our guests on the line via cell phone, but it's the middle of harvest season, and Philip is in the middle of the field.
He has work to do.
This is how we get in touch with him. Right, Philip, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. By the way, I have to say I completely got the question of the dry counties wrong. I guessed 1%.
I was the same way. I just can't believe that there's that many people that live in a dry county. Just crazy.
We need to open them all up so we get some more wine sales.
I know. And I also find it funny that some of the best bourbon in the world comes from a dry county.
Yeah.
That's just craziness. Crazy talk. Okay, so Philip, how long have you been using the practice of dry farming, and you use it for your vineyard there?
Exclusively, yes. We don't have any irrigation lines, so it's not a question of we turn it on when we need it. We are completely dry farmed, and we started in 2003.
And so when California has an exceptionally dry winter, that really puts you in a predicament come the dry months, May, June, July, August, September, right?
The answer is yes and no. Vines are very clever. They regulate themselves if you allow them to. If you give them water, if you give them fertilizers, they'll leave their root systems at the top. They'll sit by the swimming pool, sipping their drinks and enjoying life. And they'll give you what you would expect from that. But if you don't irrigate them, if you don't fertilize them, they send their root systems way down. And so one drought year is not going to be a problem. If we were to have 3 drought years, we're going to see a significant reduction in crop.
So you just have to go with Mother Nature then, and you get what you get? Is that the approach?
That is the approach. That's the drawback to dry farming. You don't regulate it at all. It is what it is.
I would imagine that the fruit, just like the watermelon I tasted, is more intense with flavor.
It's exceptional. It's more interesting. It's different. It's less regulated, exactly like that watermelon.
And don't some vintners that do not practice dry farming purposely pull back on the water supply to stress the vines near the end?
Absolutely. You hear a lot of talk about that, stressing the vines at the end, and you'll hear talk about dropping fruit because you've got too much fruit and the vine can't sustain it. When you dry farm, you don't need to drop fruit. The vine doesn't put enough on there for you to need to drop. It's all... It actually is a little bit of common sense, but again, the drawback is you don't get vast crop.
Okay, that's interesting. So obviously you're growing grapes. What do you know about growing other types of fruits and vegetables using this method?
About as much as you two do from visiting the market. We tried dry farming our tomatoes up here. Our property is on the top of a hill. We get cold winds that come in from the ocean. I was speaking to somebody who does dry farm yesterday, and they dry farm their tomatoes, and we spoke at length a little bit. Turns out that his property is at the bottom of a hill. There's a sort of waterway that runs through. They get a lot of early morning fog. So perhaps that helps out in vegetables.
I saw
Low root system. However, olives, on the other hand, love dry farming. We have nearly 600 olive trees, and they also don't get any water. Their root systems are not as deep as vines, yet they still manage to survive. And if you go to the south of Spain, you'll see hundreds of millions of them surviving in the heat of summer.
I've driven through that region north of Cadiz, and I saw lots of olive trees down there, and in the south of Spain. I saw olives on your website, and I was wondering if you indeed have an orchard there that is dry farmed, and you do.
Yeah, it's not an orchard. We put our olive trees in the vineyards, so they separate all the different varietals. It's quite pretty. We feel that the one feeds off the other, perhaps, sort of. Maybe the grapes get a little olive flavor, and maybe the olives get a little grape flavor. But again, what we're looking for is interest, and I think dry farming gives us that.
Now, I'm wondering, are there certain varietals that work better with dry farming?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have 10 varietals here, and certainly Syrah seems to be the most conscious of water. But I think it would depend where it is. My Syrah is on the north-facing, on a slightly lower hill. There's no water runoff whatsoever. Back to that swale aspect, if you were down in a valley and you had some water coming down or streams going through, it would be less sensitive. So I think the answer is yes, but it's so diverse it's very difficult to pin down.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm curious to know, because I've never really taken note when I've been wine tasting. This is not something I've thought of, but what do you hear from the people who drink your wines when they say their experience of drinking this dry farmed product versus something grown conventionally? What's the feedback you hear?
The biggest one is these are really different. That really is that simple. And we are dry farmed, and I'm going to plug some friends of ours here a little bit, because we went wine tasting one day in Paso Robles, and we ended up at Bella Luna, and we tasted their dry farmed, head trained Sangiovese, and it completely blew my wife and myself away. And we went 180 degrees and said, this is what we need to do.
And that was Bella Luna?
That was Bella Luna.
So
okay.
So you're not the only one in the valley trying. At least your entire operation is dry farmed, but there are some other vintners out there that are at least taking a portion of their crop and trying it?
Yes. I don't know what the actual number is. Maybe it's 5% or less. But, oh, yes, there are others.
Interesting. So you were using conventional methods prior to that, prior to choosing dry farming?
No, we were just about to,
Okay.
pre-planting. Literally, it was a day's wine tasting about a few months before planting, and then we tasted the wine, and it's a significant difference.
Now, ecologically, why would it be beneficial for a farmer to choose dry farming regardless of the crop?
Well, I mentioned 3 years of drought, which would be really interesting if we had that a few years ago here, and wells were going dry. So if you were irrigated and your well went dry and your plants were used to being irrigated, I think you'd have some serious problems at that point.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. So your grapes have literally trained themselves to expect a dry period.
They will do what's necessary. If we get lots of rain, they love it. They stay greener longer. Everything's very cool. But if we don't get it, then, as I said, they regulate themselves. They do what they need to do.
Now, we just have about 30 seconds left, but I did notice on the website you let, is it rabbits just wander throughout the field? and
No. We have rabbits, but they're in coops. Rabbits love grapes. No, we have chickens that wander
chickens.
through.
It's chickens. That's right. I'm sorry.
And then in the off-season, we have sheep and cows that wander through, but even they're not here during the on-season.
And you use the droppings as a form of fertilizer?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Right. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to, and is your place open to the public?
We are by appointment. Just place the phone call and we'll be here.
Okay, that's Ambeth Estate. We have a link at eatdrinkexplore.com. Philip Hart, thank you so much. Philip Hart, for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, we're back in just a moment. We will be talking dry heat, the heat of the desert, but at the good time of year and the right places to stay to enjoy it. You're listening to Eat, Drink, Explore Radio on this Sunday morning. We're back in just a moment. The historic Santa Margarita Ranch, exactly halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles off Highway 101, was founded in the mid-1700s and served as an assistant mission to the nearby mission in San Luis Obispo. The 14,000 acres that make up the ranch today have served a variety of purposes over the years, including grazing land for large herds of Mexican cattle, prime vineyard land, and this fall will once again host the main event for Sunset Savor the Central Coast, the West Coast premier food and wine event, September the 27th through the 30th, to culminate California Wine Month. Meet top chefs from the Central Coast as well as nationally recognized culinary celebrities. Several chef demonstrations will be featured, including the Battle of the Bay, hosted by the Food Network's Ted Allen of Chopped. To purchase tickets, head to SavorCentralCoast.com.